I would say that shoulder injuries are the second most frequent type of injury that we see as a result of a motor vehicle accident. You can imagine that when a car is jolted or hit, that individuals who have their hands on the steering wheel, the shoulder takes the impact of that jolt. When we see shoulder injuries, sometimes we see what we call subluxations, the shoulder comes out of socket, things like that, but oftentimes we see two very distinct types of injuries. One is called a rotator cuff injury. And many people have heard the term rotator cuff. And essentially what that means is that the humerus, the arm, which is depicted in this model here, has to fit into the shoulder socket. And because it has to fit in that shoulder socket and have a significant amount of movement, it becomes generally unstable. There are a series of 4 muscles and 4 tendons depicted in this model, which hold everything into place. Generally speaking, there is one of those tendons and muscle groups that gets injured in these types of accidents, and it's called the supraspinatus tendon. And the supraspinatus tendon is the tendon that attaches at the top by the arm and down by the bicep. And we see injuries in this area quite often. Oftentimes people who have a supraspinatus injury will have difficulty raising their hands up to the side. So activity below shoulder height is okay. They have weakness coming down in their hand if their arm is pushed in a certain way, and have difficulty putting their arm behind their back. What happens then is that we deal with most of the orthopedic spine surgeons in Western New York that deal with upper extremity injuries. Those injuries and injuries to this area are not picked up on X-ray. It's something that has to be looked at through an MRI. So if a medical doctor thinks it's appropriate and the person has symptoms, orthopedic symptoms consistent with a rotator cuff tear, they will take an MRI and be able to determine whether there's an injury there. The other type of injury that we look at in terms of the shoulder is in this area here. It's called the labrum, and in the area where the arm fits into the shoulder socket, this labrum is almost like a Teflon coating. And this Teflon coating allows everything to move freely. Oftentimes what we will see in these types of injuries is damage to that Teflon coating. And because the Teflon coating is damaged, as the arm moves, it creates problems, again, consistent with weakness or motion loss and things like that. Again, that can be picked up by an MRI, MR arthrogram. And from those, we can determine what the nature and extent of the injuries are and whether or not surgical intervention is necessary. And then we monitor to make sure that the insurance companies are aware of the nature and severity of those injuries.